Back.
And when they went to the queen to tell her her subjects had no bread, do you know what she said?
Let them eat cake.
Who took the bomb?
We're getting screwed, man. Every time we turn around, we're getting screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background with the kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of The Peasant's Perspective. It is a great Friday. Favorite day of the week. I mean, it's like the generic favorite day of the week. I mean, how can it not be your favorite day of the week? All right, I am flying solo this morning again, which is totally fine. Ron's got some important family matters he's taking care of today. So I am happy to be here with you guys and get this going. And it's a small party in the Rumble chats today. Good morning, Pony Boy. Good to have you. All right, I had a little false start. I went to start it, and then when I went to play the intro, my screen was like, "We can't share audio," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, here we go again." And but fortunately, it rebooted and everything was good. So glad to hear that. There was an article that came out this weekend. So let me get my screen arranged the way I want to do this. It's always important to have good screen sharing. Okay, so there's this article that came out yesterday. Friend of former FBI Director James Comey subpoenaed in federal probe, sources say. Good evening, John Atakis, on your way to Price, Utah. Rest in peace, Uncle Lynn. Columbia law professor who is a friend and advisor of former FBI Director James Comey was subpoenaed last week by federal prosecutors in connection with a criminal probe into whether Comey allegedly lied in testimony before Congress. Sources familiar with the matter told ABC News. Daniel Richman had previously acknowledged his role as an intermediary between Comey and reporters in the wake of Comey's 2017 firing by President Trump during his first term over Trump's anger with the FBI investigation into his 2016 campaign. So for people who kind of don't have reference here, when James Comey got fired, he took a bunch of classified information with him. Oh, geez, look, more classified information being taken. Took classified information with him, and he turned it over to this law professor friend of his, who I believe was at Columbia, and then he laundered it out into the media. Trump later accused Comey of breaking the law by sharing his memos, arguing they contained classified information, though Richmond later told ABC News in a statement that none of the documents had any classified markings. Right. The subpoena to Richmond, according to sources, stems from an investigation that Comey made before Congress in September 2020 about the investigation into Russian interference. Comey has repeatedly defended his handling of the early stages of the investigation and denied any decisions were based out of political animus towards Trump. A previous investigation by the Justice Department Inspector General found Inspector General faulted Comey for violating FBI policies over his handling of the memos regarding his interactions with President Trump, though the DOJ under Trump's first administration declined to prosecute him. So this is one of the people that James Comey, leaked classified information to. Oh, I don't know. What's it been? 5 years ago? No, it's been longer than that. It's been 8 years ago. 7 and 8, almost 8 years ago. Long time. Way too long. And they're finally getting to it. In fact, it makes me wonder if the statute of limitations hasn't already run up on this, which means if they're running this grand jury and he's being asked to come, they've probably tied it to a larger conspiracy, because I think 5 years is what I've been hearing is the statute of limitations on that. So that's pretty interesting. The thing that really gets me here is the way they do a grand jury and investigations like this. And sometimes when I hear like people who are legal eagles and former prosecutors giving explanations about how it should be or how it normally is, I'm like, I've seen all the rules fly out the window. Like I've watched every rule get broken. In fact, there's constantly books like this one, Justice Denied by, let me stop sharing so you can see my full screen. Justice Denied by Hal Waltz. This book is just full of violations of process and rights and how it should be. So We never know how it should be. Power is power. But the fact that they're pulling him into a grand jury now, they're kind of past fact finding. Sometimes they can use a grand jury to do fact finding because they can get subpoenas and stuff like that. But most likely, if they're bringing him in at this stage, they've already gotten all their digital subpoenas, all their returns from the media companies, right? And they basically are now creating perjury traps. Are you going to lie or not? Are you going to tell a story, or are you going to tell the truth as events actually occurred? So that's what I think is happening here. I don't know that James Comey will ever be invited in front of the grand jury. They'll probably just end up showing, all the video of him being like, "Yep, we just went in to talk to Flynn, figured it was too early on. Why get permission? And yeah, I took classified information and gave it to my friend in the media. It was important stuff. I wanted the world to know that Trump was a crook, aka I'm projecting." Uh, so that's I think it's progress. That's the first time that I've officially seen a an announcement that somebody has gone before the grand jury. Now, at the same time, we have a little bit of a sad situation here because I thought that Letitia James, according to Trump's allegations, was pretty much dead to rights on mortgage fraud, but apparently that might not be the case. Trump poised to fire a U.S. attorney for resisting effort to charge New York Attorney General Letitia James. Sources. Now, this is coming from ABC News. It's got 3 authors on it, so don't really know why that has to be that way. Catherine Falders, Peter Charlambos, and Alexander Malin. Excuse me. And they say President Trump is expected to fire the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia after his office was unable to find incriminating evidence of mortgage fraud against New York Attorney General Letitia James, according to sources. Now, what's crazy about this is you had Ed Martin go to one of her New York residences, and he's famously photoed outside with his Columbo jacket on. So what's going on here? Federal prosecutors in Virginia have uncovered no clear evidence to prove that James had knowingly committed mortgage fraud when she purchased a home in the state in 2023. ABC News first reported earlier this week, but Trump officials pushed U.S. Attorney Eric Siebert to nevertheless bring criminal charges against her, according to sources. Administration officials have told Siebert of Trump's intention to fire him. Sources familiar with the matter said Siebert's last day on the job is expected to be Friday. The decision to fire Siebert could throw into crisis one of the most prominent U.S. attorney's offices, which handles a bulk of the country's espionage and terrorism cases, and heightened concerns about Trump's alleged use of the DOJ to target his political adversaries. Trump nominated Siebert for the position in May, sources familiar with the matter said, and that the administration now plans to install a U.S. attorney that would be more aggressively investigate James. The move to fire Siebert because he refused to charge one of Trump's political rivals would mark an escalation in what Trump's critics have called retribution campaign, with ongoing investigations also targeting Adam Schiff and Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. Trump has repeatedly accused James, who successfully brought a civil fraud case against him last year, and leads multiple lawsuits challenging the administration's policies of targeting him for political reasons, calling her biased and corrupt. So, seems to me like this is one of those cases where this attorney does not want to get involved with what could be considered a retribution case. And Steve Bannon has been mentioning this more and more. There's a contingent of people around Washington who truly don't like Donald Trump and or like themselves better and are kind of doing the self-preservation thing. They're like, okay, 3.5 years. We just got to wait them out. 3.5 years. What can I do not to get in trouble for 3.5 years? So there seems to be people that are committed to the cause and people that are just writing the cause out. And this attorney, I don't know who he was appointed by. I'm not sure if Trump appointed him or not, or if it was a holdover. But either way, if he's got to go, he's got to go. I think this is one of those instances that historically, when the entities that weaponize political power or weaponize law power, I should say, they use it, but they project out this, oh, we're above board, we're dotting our I's, we're crossing our T's. That's not really been the case when you go back and look at these situations. But the idea is then when the good guys get into office, that mentality of you have to dot your I's, cross your T's, and even, err on the side of leniency, I think is what they get stuck doing. And in the case of Letitia James, Trump put the evidence out there. It's hard to deny that stuff. It's hard to be like, oh, that's not mortgage fraud. Clearly looks like prima facie mortgage fraud. So I don't know. Who knows? Now, obviously, we've had this continuous issue with the Charlie Kirk assassination, which it's tragic. And it's another one of those instances where you're kind of sitting back and you're like, okay, this is my real thought process here. So Charlie Kirk gets assassinated. This is a tragedy. I've been through tragedy myself. My family's been through some tough times, and in those tough times, all you can really think about is being in the moment. So, on one hand, this is a horrible tragedy for the Kirk family. This is very difficult, and we should really just be doing a lot of thoughts and prayers. On the other hand, this is a major political event. This is the highest profile political assassination, I think, since RFK, if not, shortly there, in that time frame, so 60 years. And there's just a lot of questionable stuff. And there's, again, questionable actors in this. You have people like Governor Cox, who's obviously running the state of Utah. He's a very questionable character in this. Why? Because this shooting seems to have a connection to a Transtifa thing, a little transgender online thing. And he's been promoting that like directly, like, I'm he, him. And, we have to love all of our transgender kids. So there's this undertone of this Republican governor has like supported this community and has given quarter to it. So does he have a vested interest in kind of maintaining what he's been doing by downplaying that involvement? On the other hand, you've got people that are very down the boots involved with this. I don't have this clip pulled up, but Candace Owens has been in communication with people that were in the neighborhood where he parked his car. And the story that the state of Utah is telling us does not line up with multiple credible witnesses about where that car was. Another thing is now the timeline doesn't match up because there was a video found at a Wendy's, a surveillance video at a Wendy's, where at like 6:30 or 40, whatever PM, he's not far from the scene at a Wendy's, just dressed openly, like looking at the camera. Doesn't look like he's rushed. And he also, this outfit thing where he's changing his clothes. Now he did change his pants, didn't change his pants, changed his pants back, changed his shirt, didn't change his shirt. What color is this guy supposed to be wearing? Khakis, no khakis, rifle, no rifle, towel, no towel, box, no box, right? DNA evidence, no DNA evidence. It just doesn't line up. And I think that's because, in my opinion, and I'm going to play two videos here, and we've talked about this, quote, military connection. Doug, good morning to you. We've talked about this military connection, and I think that there's a lot to this. And given my personal firsthand experience with what the DOJ is capable of covering up, or in my case, manufacturing, saying that I had a ex-vanity name that I never had and getting it off the weight. You had a subpoena. Why didn't you get the subpoena from a data release from the Twitter or whatever, or from my phone? Why would you go to the Wayback Machine and pull some random account that you can't connect to my device, right? That makes no sense to me. So that's kind of what I feel with between the text messages, the timeline, the way this whole thing plays out. It's such a perfect lone wolf shooter situation. But the reality is this person absolutely did not walk alone. So this right here is a reporter that was on Jesse Waters' show, and she infiltrated these Antifa groups and kind of saw how they operate organizationally. So she shares a couple key points of information, and she brings up that the Antifa, the ground thugs, the Transtifa movement, as we're going to call it now, they get trained by military, that military, enlisted men come and do training with these people, probably more than just enlisted. And therein lies this huge problem, which, by the way, for all my Q friends, the whole trust the military thing, when I hear stuff like this, I think this is why I think it's a psyop sometimes, to get you to trust entities you shouldn't really have a native trust to. And I want to point something at, well, let's listen to this video and then I'll make my comment in between this and Webb's video. That's weird. Long pause. Oh, what's going on? Gotta check the sound. Okay. Oh, you know what would help? I have to share the screen. That's how this works. That's how this works. There you go. All right.
Karlin Borisenko is an undercover investigative journalist for Decode the Left who's infiltrated these terror cells. Karlin, tell me about how these people train. They look pretty militaristic.
Yeah, absolutely. They do have sessions where they bring in people with military experience. Anti-war is a very big thing for Antifa, so they do hand-to-hand combat trainings. I was just undercover with them in New York City over the weekend, where they had a whole self-defense class where they were teaching people how to violently, confront the police, but also defend themselves if they needed to be put in that position.
And why do they always get out of jail so quickly? You see all these people get popped, they get bailed right out, and charges never stick. How is that?
Well, Antifa actually they train people on how to get arrested, and it's interesting with far left subcultures because they actually volunteer to get arrested and go through this type of training where they are provided legal support, they are provided lawyers, they are provided all of this stuff with mutual aid. And so as soon as they get arrested, Antifa basically goes down to the jail and they bail them out, and they are all set up with a lawyer and ready to go. So they plan all of this stuff out ahead of time, and they have the resources set up for people to be able to be taken care of.
Yeah, I mean, obviously someone's paying for their legal representation. What is the core mission of Antifa? Is it anarchy? Are they anarchists?
Yeah, Antifa are anarchists. Their primary goal is the violent overthrow of the federal government. I cannot emphasize this enough. You know, we've been hearing a lot of talk about civil war over the last couple years between Democrats and Republicans, red versus blue. I firmly believe that the real civil war we have coming is the radical revolutionary socialists and communists in Antifa versus the federal government. That is their goal. That is their only goal. And people need to start taking this problem very, very seriously.
So essentially, taking out that they have some kind of master plan on what to replace the government with after they're done. Anarchists generally just want no government, and their government is through a series of volunteerism and stuff like that. So when she's saying this, like their goal is to fight the federal government, like that's the objective. The objective is battle, right? And this little battle on their terms. Now, George Webb, who's been on the ground in Utah investigating this, had this to say. And I've played a couple clips of his. I've watched, I don't know, it feels like 100 clips of his so far. So I hope I don't cite something that I didn't bring into the show for context. But he's talking about how this online chat group was actually ROTC recruits. These are people that are in the ROTC, and maybe a couple of them are trannies, but really they're transitioning into being mercenaries to go fight for Ukraine. That Zelensky came down, set up some deal with Governor Cox. They recruit out of the ROTC, and they create these cells inside of the ROTC that can then feed this international militia, which is going and fighting in Ukraine, mercenary style. So that's essentially what this guy was involved with, him and his furry friend and the other people in that chat room, which you're hearing very little about the other people in the chat room. It's being kept on the real DL, but allegedly, they're opening up this big investigation. Now, in fairness, that could be because it's secret, because they're opening up a terror investigation. It could also be because they really want to keep that quiet. George Webb's perspective is that the state of Utah is going to go with the lone gunman, acted alone, quietly pre-planned it, and just make it quick and easy. But the evidence, and again, this show, we're not trying to get out onto the weeds on everything. We're news commentary. So when this stuff shows up in the news and on social media, we want to look at it, analyze it, have an opinion of it, put it into our quiver of information, and then move forward. Because as more information comes out, sometimes we go, oh, hey, remember, like the military connection with Tyler Robinson and this Antifa group is the thing that the mainstream media is not saying. You'll hear a word here or there. You've heard Donald Trump mention it. You've heard this woman on Jesse Waters mention it. You've heard Steve Bannon mention it. So everybody seems to be aware there's a connection between Antifa and the military. However, how deep that connection goes and how it works is yet to be seen. So this is George Webb, who's on the ground talking to people, going into the different ROTCs, kind of meeting it up, reading the page, like he's doing the hard work. And one of the things he's finding, by the way, there's not a lot of other journalists or anybody out there knocking the doors and talking to these people. For this massive, largest political assassination, you'd think they'd have blown up the whole neighborhood by now and interviewed everybody. But apparently that's not happening. They're focusing just on digital data. And so he's out there. He's got both. He's got metadata, and he's also got on the ground stuff. And he is making a observation that these Antifa groups go and recruit members out of the NROTC, which is the Nuclear Reserve Officer Training Corps, right? Remember, Tyler Robinson tested a top 1% in the state of Utah for math aptitude, physics, whatever, wildly intelligent. And that by having a NROTC, a nuclear ROTC affiliation, that gives them a Q clearance. It doesn't mean they individually have Q clearance to go read nuclear codes. It means their program is Q clearanced, right? And if anybody in that group is part of that program, the national government, through the National Security Act, has the ability to basically kibosh anything dealing with that group because of the security clearance. Oh, I got to do that thing where I share my screen again. It's not as easy. When Ron's here, I just put it on my extra monitor and he plays it. But here I got to actually do the hard manual work.
Okay, hello everybody, George Webb. You saw yesterday at the Capitol, I was a little bit harried being in Salt Lake City. But basically what I said yesterday is I just need one person on my team to be in one of the nuclear ROTC programs in Utah. And now my whole team, I can suppress my whole team. I can have as many trans assassins, as many armed trans queer, armed queers as I want. I can have 100. If I have one person within ROTC, one nuclear ROTC, the whole mission is now a matter of national security. I just need one Tyler Robinson on my team. Everything is top secret from there. We're focusing on the team. We said it was armed queers. We said it was Tyler Robinson's clearance that they were using to bury all the evidence, to suppress all the evidence. They're not collecting any student phones. They're not collecting any evidence. There's no investigation going on. There's no, hey, send me your leads, send me your tips, as far as it's all going into a bit bucket, right? This is all the metadata of a cover-up, right? And you only need one Tyler Robinson. And you may not believe this, with Defense Threat Reduction Agency, anything to do with movement of nuclear materials, Q-level clearance from the Department of Energy, or the movement of nuclear materials with the State Department, anything to do with that, I can pluck Tyler out of jail anytime I want, based on national security. Then I can send him to a golf course, right? Minimum security prison, and then give him a presidential pardon later on down the track. So this is what I'm saying, is I can now have a team of assassins working under a top secret program, kill all the political opponents I want. If I have just one Tyler, and our ROTC. We think it's Salt Lake because that's where the Triga reactor is. Could be one of the other Utah universities, but that's how you get away with murder in America.
So what he's saying there is basically, right, one person in the bigger group is in ROTC. You know, they're in college and physics classes, whatever, and they're part of that program being recruited into nuclear, military, whatever. And all of a sudden, that whole group kind of comes under this umbrella of they can kibosh any investigation, any connections to that person. And that's a huge issue. So let's pretend Tyler Robinson's that case and he's got people helping him. Why haven't they collected phones? Why haven't they done any of that? They're not. Why? He supposes that the federal government, right, the nuclear thing is like, poop, this is a lone shooter. But what happens is, like, let's say you're involved and you went out and you dropped the gun, like you're participating, right? You know, you just helped an assassination. You know, you committed a crime. You know, this is all bad. Well, now you watch Tyler Robinson go down, but you don't. You got covered up for. So now whoever did that for you, presumably some entity, some government-backed sponsored paramilitary entity, has got you. If you ever step out of line, they involve you in that murder you participated in, you're done. And also you realize that they have more power than the government. If you can get away with murder and have it be sanctioned, then you're the new thing, right? Really, really bad. What blows me away is that these people didn't have very good operational security on their cell phones, which is kind of mind-boggling to me if you know you're committing crimes, which makes you wonder. Which brings me to the fact, right? Shameless ad read time, which brings me to the fact of Patriot Mobile, right? Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. And they're putting their money where their values are. Every call you make helps fund causes that protect faith, family, freedom, and our Constitution. Right now, Patriot Mobile is giving you an entire month of service absolutely free when you switch and use the promo code Courage 25. That's COURAGE 25. That's right. Your first month is on them. You get reliable nationwide 4G and 5G coverage, affordable plans for you and your family, and 100% US-based customer support. And the best part, your dollars are supporting causes you believe in. Go to patriotmobile.com or call 972-PATRIOT today. That's patriotmobile.com, promo code Courage25, one month free. Use Courage25 for 1 month free of services. Now, Patriot Mobile is a gentleman that I'm affiliated with loosely, a group called Mark 37 that deals with digital privacy and getting phones and things like that are de-Googled. Like the laptop I'm using right now has no Google cookies and no Facebook cookies. It's been de-Googled. They call it a ghost laptop, right? Doesn't mean ghost. It just means it runs off Linux system. Anyways, they do that, and they recommend Patriot Mobile because Patriot Mobile, obviously being conservative and supporting conservative causes, is excellent. But more than that, they only comply with subpoenas. So unlike AT&T and Verizon, who just gave all of the metadata to the United States government after January 6th without a subpoena, Patriot Mobile won't do that. They will protect your privacy to the letter of the law. So I highly recommend Patriot Mobile, and I can honestly endorse them. Okay, so thank you for that. Again, if they've got a Q level clearance and they're part of the ROTC, then it opens the door for them basically under national security to cut it all down. Ponyboy says that was a good transition. I'll give you that. I love it. You guys, you know what I love about the Peasants Pod living room crowd, which, by the way, if you're a longtime listener or you're a dedicated daily listener and you get a hold with me, figure out a way to get a hold of me. You can get a hold of me in real life. Go to 1776live.us. You can kind of follow it through and eventually you'll meet me. If you're, like-minded, I'll invite you into my living room. I have a digital living room on Telegram. It's a small Telegram chat room or group with people in here. We've become very good friends over the years, supporting each other. They were there for me while I was under indictment. Anyways, Ponyboy, you've been there since the beginning. And so I appreciate the comment. I am so happy. You got to realize it's kind of like a dream come true. I listen to podcasts. I'm a junkie. You know how many times I've heard a Patriot Mobile ad read? You know how cool it felt to have it coming out of my mouth? That was kind of fun. So, okay, this is Steve Bannon. Again, talking about how we've just begun to get this whole party started, and that this going after Antifa and declaring them a terrorist organization, which, by the way, guess who piled on? The Netherlands yesterday, their parliament voted to add Transtifa as an international terror organization. England got a question. Keir Starmer got a question, and he implied that they'll be looking into it. That would be really wonderful if they did that too. This could really be a major transition when it comes to going after that far left anarchist communist ideology. Pretty impressive. So here's Steve Bannon.
Charlie Kirk's not just being treated as a murder case by some cops out in Utah. It is going to be designated. We're going to have a Antifa and all of its subsets designated as a major terrorist network by the President of the United States. I think that executive order will be coming here forthwith. I know teams are already being formed. This is going to be the end of days for this crowd. You see how they're squealing right there? Well, Antifa's not really. It's totally disorganized. Yeah, okay. That's the top level of the Grundoons. You got the middle level of kind of the military and other intelligence apparatuses that train them. And then you got the base and the bottom and the most important, the operations, the media connections, the corporate connections, the foundation connections, the university connections, and wait for it, the money. And what foreign countries are in back of this? The color revolution. This is going after the color revolution in the United States of America. And it's going to be full bore. Charlie Kirk's not just being treated.
Woo, buddy. It's going to be full bore. He's going after the color revolution and the people behind it. That is cool. But you notice again, I point this out. It slips out. Steve Bannon's not talking directly about this military connection, but he's saying no, it's connection to the military, right? At tops level. But on his show, he hasn't spent any time diving down into what that means, like George Webb, who has really kind of exposed it. Like there's this ROTC program, and it seems to be kind of a recruiting ground or a hotbed recruiting ground. Yesterday in New York, there was another one of these, Free Palestine movements, and they had some arrests. I got to remember to share my screen every time I do this. Otherwise, we're going to go back and forth. Not AI, folks. So check this out. They had these today, and these mostly do look like, your typical liberal protesters doing their chants. They'll train. And when that one lady said they get trained to be arrested, these are pretty well-behaved people for being arrested. It's like they know it's just they're going to be processed through. But what I really wonder, anytime we see protests like this, as a conservative, it's easy just to go, oh, that's Antifa. I don't know that this is Antifa, right? I have no idea. I saw one lady with an older boomer in there with blonde hair. See if I can show you here. Right. See this woman, like, this woman right here, she's got her hands behind her back. She's been zip tied. She doesn't particularly look like Antifa. This woman right here doesn't really look like Antifa. This woman right here could pass either way, right? This guy right here with the Catholic collar, I have a feeling he's not actually a priest. He probably is Antifa, actually. Anyways, point is, who knows, right? This could be BLM, any just random protesters. But I think right now in America, it's probably not the best time to go to a liberal-oriented protest, because if there is a tie-in with Antifa, you just opened yourself up big time. And the objective here is the same thing they did on January 6th. They want to freeze speech. And by free speech, I mean, make you think twice about going to a protest. Because the Democrats have not been thinking twice. The liberals, they've just totally been into it. So I don't know. Like, I got sucked in, right? Watched 2020, all these protests, and I thought, oh, I can go to January 6th. And, the day of, I had thoughts, and it was like, oh, make a little, in Portuguese, we call it bagunça, but, make a little noise and be a little rowdy, and it'll be fine. No big deal. We'll all go home. Nah, it's not exactly how that worked out. So my gut tells me there's probably going to be a lot of people in Antifa that are like, oh, wait, what? I don't just make bail the next day. And oh, wait, what? I'm a terrorist. I think it's going to be not so good for some of them. Here's Donald Trump talking about just that, and specifically going after the money.
They have signs, and they're all professionally made. Real protesters make them in their basement. And they're all the same.
So who's behind it? Do you have a gut feeling?
You hear Soros. I don't know. We're going to find out if he's behind it. But it's incitement to riot. That's a criminal act. And people are dying because of it. So it's really, it's death. So we're going to find out. And it should have been done a long time ago. They have signs, and they're all professionally made.
So Trump is basically saying, look, when they make signs and they're professionally made, it was pre-planned. How could you say it's not pre-planned if event happened yesterday, signs already been pre-printed? He says if it's organic, they make signs in their basement, if they make signs at all, right? So he's saying it's incitement to violence. Here's the thing. I know for a fact they can use your speech from years or months and months ago where you said something that you might think is off the cuff and hyperbolic rhetoric. If in the future your speech leads to violence, they're going to make the connections and connect the dots, and that's that. It just is the way it is, right? We have absolute freedom of speech. I'm definitely a free speech absolutist, but you can make your choices, but you can't always pick your consequences, right? It's kind of like you can pick your nose or you can pick your friends, but you can't pick your friend's nose, something like that. You can pick your choices, but you can't pick your consequences. If your speech leads to violence, then, there might be some accountability there. And if your speech leads to violence and you happen to be associated with Antifa, you might have a terrorism charge. Could get a little rough. This was Donald Trump again yesterday in a press conference with Keir Starmer. And he was asked about the auto pen scandal and the different pardons.
While Trump was overseas, he was asked about his predecessor, the auto pen.
Is there any update on the auto pen?
Yeah, it's just gotten worse from their standpoint. The people that used it, and in particular, one person was never told by Biden to do it. Only spoke to Biden twice, and that was just talking about the weather, not talking about any order. And he was taking orders from people other than Joe Biden.
Biden's chief of staff, Jeff Zients, testified today. He said Biden's decision-making slowed down during his term. Decisions that took 3 meetings eventually required 4. Jill Biden ordered the chief of staff to change the president's schedule so he could sleep more. And Zients admitted that Hunter Biden was in meetings and directly involved in pardons. Why was he in meetings? And what pardons? All the drug dealers? All 4,000 of them? Was Hunter running the auto pen? We know Joe wasn't.
Wow. And now we know Hunter Biden used crack cocaine, which based on his dad's 1994 crime bill, people who got charged with crack cocaine got disproportionately sentenced over people who got caught with powder coke, right? Apparently they're the same drug. I don't know. Details matter and how they're made. But for no real good reason, crack cocaine fetched a much higher charge. This led to huge instability in the black community because, like, if you got caught using cocaine, you might be in and out of jail for the weekend. You might go to a rehab program. They treated it differently. But if you got caught with crack, right, it was straight to jail, 10-year minimums. Like, it completely differentiated the two drugs and how you got treated. If you were a cocaine addict, you typically got state sponsored rehab. If you were a crack addict, which again, same drug, you ended up in federal prison or state prison, whatever the case was. Federal, 94 crime bills, federal. So one of the things they did was they commuted all the sentences to people who'd been sentenced on crack cocaine charges to be the same as if they had been sentenced on cocaine. So when I was in prison in those last few weeks leading up to Trump's inauguration, there were guys coming up like, my name's on the list. They printed off a list on the wall of all the people so people could go look, because they didn't petition for a commutation or a pardon, but people were having their sentences reduced because it was all being adjusted to the new sentencing guidelines. Dude, it was crazy. It was like a jailbreak. And on TV, literally, we'd be watching TV and they'd be like, these are nonviolent offenders, just drug charges. And then you'd be sitting next to, like one guy, I won't say his name because he was commuted and he's home now, and he probably has 5 or 6 more years left on his sentence. So if they revoke these pardons, he'll probably have to go back. But or these commutations. But I was like, what were your charges? He told me he had aggregated violence, gun charges. The crack cocaine was like just the one that had the longest sentence, but that's the only reason it was like his main charge. Otherwise he would have had like the violence charges. Oh, he got the whole thing commuted. So it wasn't just nonviolent offenders. It was just drug offenders, and regardless of what they had on it. But the fact that Joe Biden didn't sign these, right? The only pardon that he actually signed was Hunter Biden's. Every other one was done with the auto pen. And in some cases, like he said, Mark Zaid told investigators that he wasn't even in communication with Joe Biden. So Joe Biden didn't even necessarily know what he was, or whoever was doing the auto pen didn't even necessarily know that Joe Biden knew what it was that he was signing. This is wild. So I constantly am asking myself, like, what are they going to do with the people that had their commutations signed by the auto pen? Are they going to really take them out? I don't know. I really, really struggle with how they're going to roll back the auto pen stuff. There's a maxim of law that says the government is by agreement, not by consent, right? So we agree to be governed. If enough of us disagreed with the governing, we would just, grab the pitchforks and overthrow the thing. The government is constantly in fear of that. It's the nature of the beast. There's nothing controversial in that statement. Government fear the people fear the government. What is it? You have liberty when the government fears the people, and you have tyranny when people fear the government. So we're constantly in that tug of war back and forth. So with the auto pens, the people are just consenting. Like, we don't reject it, so we just accept it, and that creates this tacit consent of the governed by the government. So why it is that they can't undo those pardons is it creates chaos, right? People will be affected and it creates chaos. But we either have laws that say the signature matters or we don't. And that's where this gets really hairy. Is this just government by fiat? By just enforcement? Hey, we have a piece of paper that says you have to do it. Yeah, but you didn't sign it. The auto pen did, so it has no force. No, we're doing it anyways. Why? Well, because we have guns. That's what the argument will ultimately boil down to. Well, we have guns and you don't. So therefore you have to accept an auto pen signature. Yeah, but we set it up so the living being, like the actual president in his person, his living persona, has to sign that and put that authority into the paper. No, this is fiat. We just have bigger guns, and we have a piece of paper and it's got a signature on it. It doesn't matter if it was signed by the person who we allege signed it or not. It's just totally irrelevant. The other thing that blows me away is like warrants. They don't have to be signed. Not anymore. I mean, they did. You can challenge it. If you catch it early enough before you get arraigned, you can challenge it. But after that, you've waived all the defects of service. It's like, this is by fiat. This is by fake. This is by force of law. This is by the barrel of a gun. This isn't by some type of authority where I gave my agreement. Hey, if we elect someone and they assign something, then we'll be bound by it. That's not what's going on here. It's not what's going on here at all. So how they unwind that, I have no idea. No idea. But you've got people like Adam Schiff, the whole J6 committee, which, by the way, how would it be to be sitting on the J6 committee as like Jamie Raskin when I believe he was one of the pardon recipients, if I remember correctly? It's just aggravating beyond all get up. Okay, so this next video is Nick Sortier, and he is being interviewed by Sky News, and they're asking him about Jimmy Kimmel getting pulled off the air. And I think Nick Sortier has a good little response. Now, he's hot to trot on this. I mean, he lost a friend, but he explains how Jimmy Kimmel, first of all, is not really a comedian. No one's ever laughed. And second of all, that he has a duty to do what's right in the public interest. And I want to talk about that in a second.
Let's talk about Jimmy Kimmel. First of all, what did you make of his comments? And then we'll get to the debate.
I think his comments were disgraceful. You know, he claims to be a comedian, but I've never heard this guy tell a joke in my life. And then the Democrats are saying, well, Jimmy Kimmel's getting fired for a joke. That is not true. Out of his comments, what was supposed to be the punchline? What was supposed to be the humorous part? He just straight up lied about Charlie Kirk. He said Charlie Kirk's assassin was a MAGA guy. He wasn't a MAGA guy. He was a far leftist who was in love with transgender people. It was a total lefty. He was a foot soldier of the Democrat Party, and he just killed my friend. Jimmy knew that, but he said the other thing anyway. And so he got held accountable. And this isn't cancel culture. This is called consequence culture. It isn't censorship. It's accountability. And so, you know, I'm so, outraged that he's not pretending to be the victim here. He insulted the victim. He lied about the victim, and that the victim is Charlie Kirk.
Okay, let's get to the other side of that argument. And you know, it should be said too that Jimmy Kimmel is no supporter of Donald Trump. I mean, there's been constant attacks in the past and constant jokes. But on the other side of the argument about freedom of speech is that isn't that Jimmy Kimmel's right to say what he wants under the banner of freedom of speech?
Sure, but he doesn't have the right to say it on ABC. He put ABC in jeopardy. You know, you had all these different affiliate networks saying that we're not going to air Jimmy Kimmel's show. That's going to lose out on marketing revenue, advertising revenue. Why? Because these affiliate networks wanted to do the right thing. You had Nexstar that came out and said, we're not going to air it. And that's 32 networks. You had Sinclair, that's even more. And so he put ABC in a bad spot. And his show already sucked, by the way. He barely got 300,000 viewers. Nobody liked this guy. He peaked in 2005 when he wore blackface on television. He hasn't been popular since. And so ABC made a smart business move by getting him off the air. And now everybody's acting like he is some sort of martyr. Charlie's the martyr. Jimmy Kimmel's a disgraceful liar, and he's being held accountable for his actions.
Just finally.
He peaked in 2005 when he wore blackface on the air. It's really funny. Oh, it's true, though. So here's the situation. There's so much talk about Jimmy Kimmel's firing being an attack on free speech. The devil is in the details in situations like this. On a whole, yes, I don't support cancel culture. I do support accountability culture, okay, but I don't support cancel culture. I don't think that you should be fired for your free speech in general, okay? You should be allowed to have an opinion and make comments. However, there is some line between incitement to violence and pile-ons and slander and defamation and doxing and putting people's health and life at risk. All of that has a factor. But more specifically than that, there are public airwaves, right? There are these airwaves that are broadcast at a frequency that are considered public domain. And in order to broadcast on those public frequencies, those airwaves are property of the public. So the state, as guardians of the public's property, have licensed certain corporations to broadcast on those airwaves. Corporations, in a legal sense, are creatures of the state. Okay. And a corporation is supposed to serve the public good. So I'm going to take you on a little bit of a history lesson here. And this is why you guys all love the Peasant's Perspective and why every now and then we show you something that's a little unique. Corporations were not really popularized until the late 19th century. Corporations originally, their function was a large public project. So, for example, you would form a corporation to raise bonds to build a bridge. Once the bridge was done, the tolls had been collected, and the bonds had been paid off, the corporation would be dissolved. You would form a corporation to raise bonds to build a dam or a school or a park. Once the project was completed, tolls, taxes, or whatever, whatever income source to pay off those bonds is done, those bonds are paid, the corporation is diminished. In the 19th century, the states would often go around and revoke charters, corporation charters, because the public interest was no longer being served. As in, whatever public interest that corporation was created for, it had run its course and it no longer needed to exist. The purpose of a corporation was not to, quote, make a profit. It was to do something in the public interest. If you wanted to, quote, make a profit, you had an unincorporated business trust or a trust of some format. And that's why the railroads, who were in the business of making a profit, they were not in the business of public interest. The railroads eventually grew so big under trust that we had to bust the trust. Same thing with the oil. All that Standard Oil was held under trust, and Theodore Roosevelt had to come in and trust bust. At that same time period, lawyers came up with this scheme. They're like, hey, if we can make the public interest be to make profit, and how could we do that? Well, we could create a tax scheme where paying taxes is good in the public interest. So the whole point of the corporation is to make a profit to pay taxes on the interest on the bonds that we issued those corporations, because that was the original intent of a corporation, to get public interest, to be able to create public debt, get the bonds, raise the capital, do the project, pay it off, call it good. Well, now, if a corporation's public interest is to pay interest to the public's central bank, right? Now, a profit motive is the public interest. So these airwaves, they belong to the public. There's corporations formed that are supposed to serve the public interest, who get a license to broadcast on these airwaves that are property of the public. Not complicated. However, in order to broadcast on the public airways, you have to serve the public interest. So is lying to the public in the public interest? I mean, maybe if you're Winston Churchill and they're like, the truth is so precious, it must be surrounded by a body of lies. Okay, propaganda. That's why the Smith-Mundt Act was created, to prevent propaganda, because it's not in the public interest for us, the public, to be lied to. That was the point. So ABC, NBC, CBS, these are public corporations that broadcast on public airways by license. Not CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. They do not have a FCC broadcast license. So the whole point here is, when you lie on those public airwaves, you're broadcast out to people for free, essentially on taxpayer property through the airwaves. Or I say taxpayer, it's not taxpayer property, on the public's property through the airwaves. You have to have that public interest in mind. You have to, be honest. So ABC looked at his ratings, 129,000 a night in the key demographic. And just for context there, Megyn Kelly's been pointing this out, but like Tucker Carlson gets 21 million views for little crappy interviews he does. And Jimmy Kimmel, they're spending $100 million, I think, annually on his production show with who knows how many staff. And he's not even pulling that as an annual audience. And who knows how many repeat viewers are in there, right? Really bad. So ABC made a business decision in order to stay out of hot water with the FCC. They fired him. Good move there. Now, Democrats don't really have a leg to stand on when it comes to censorship of free speech and their different justifications for when you can or can't do that. They got no leg to stand on at all. Here is a montage of different Democrat leaders talking about, free speech and, how not everything is exactly going to fall into that category. You can't say certain things. So in a great act of don't become the thing you hate, these guys have literally become the thing they hate, the thing that they used to preach against.
You shouldn't be banned from one platform and not others for providing misinformation out there.
There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
There are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda, and whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrent.
If people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, has an agenda and they're putting out disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block. It's really hard to govern today.
This is a matter of corporate responsibility. Twitter should be held accountable and shut down that site. It is a matter of safety and corporate accountability.
The First Amendment is not absolute. It does not protect any single thing anyone says. And there are limits, and that's important. And what this committee has been trying to do for the last year and a half is to chill the federal government from monitoring what is going on social media.
When you look at what Tucker Carlson and some of these other folks on Fox do, it is very, very clearly incitement of violence. Very clearly incitement of violence. I believe that when it comes to broadcast television, like Fox News, these are subject to federal law, federal regulation in terms of what's allowed on air and what isn't.
So my biggest concern is that your view has the First Amendment hamstringing the government in significant ways.
These people, oh, when it's good for us to do the censoring, freedom of speech has its limits, but no, for you guys, oh no, don't do that. You should just allow anything and everything. These guys are great. Now, if you're another shameless transition here, Pony Boy, you're going to like this one because it's football season. Hey, football fanatics, are you ready for some primetime NFL action? Tune in to Westwood One for all the gridiron glory you crave. From jaw-dropping touchdowns to game-changing plays, don't miss a moment of the excitement, every catch, every snap, every tackle, and every victory on Westwood One. You can listen to the NFL on the NFL app, on Westwood One Sports app, on westwoodonesports.com via Westwood One station streams, or by asking Alexa to open Westwood One Sports. If it's the NFL, it's on Westwood One. So my wife and I just 2 weeks ago, was like, hey, let's pick a sport and kind of have a little sport thing for the family so we can have some kind of relaxation and rest with the family and, watch sports. And we've traditionally kind of been a basketball family, but I was like, let's do football. Let's do football this year. Let's get into that. We haven't really been big sports fans since Seattle last made their Super Bowl forays. And so, she was like, but the NFL's gone so woke. And I'm like, you should see what are you talking about? The NBA is like way more woke than the NFL. Been really happy this year. She just said yesterday, she's like, I'm actually really enjoying the NFL's response to the Charlie Kirk thing. It's like, for once they finally got it right. So good on the NFL and good on Westwood One for broadcasting all of their games. And again, if you want to find your favorite sports, stream it on Westwood One. All right. Thank you so much, Westwood One, for that opportunity to read your ad. I'm telling you, man, started at the bottom. Now we're here. Can't tell you how cool it is to at least have that. Okay. Another thing that in another episode of Don't Become the Thing You Hate, Chuck Schumer, back when Tucker Carlson was fired from Fox News. Apparently, you can barely see it here, but apparently he wrote a letter to Robert Murdoch to direct Tucker Carlson and other hosts on your network to stop spreading false election narratives and admit on air that they were wrong to engage in such negligent behavior. So this is in response to, this is in reminding them, because they sent out this letter basically scorning Donald Trump and the Republican Party for chilling free speech. The House Democrats will make sure that America learn the truth, even if that requires a relentless unleashing of congressional subpoena power. This will not be forgotten. The firing of Jimmy Kimmel, as opposed to the firing of Tucker Carlson. So again, I think Greg Gutfeld had the best take at all. When you're the one doing it, you say we're both doing it. When I'm the one doing it, you tell me I'm the one doing it. And what are the Democrats doing right now? Oh, well, there's violence on both sides. It's everywhere. That means it's mainly on your side. Statistics show it and common sense shows it. This is Lindy Lee. Of course, she was the worker that worked on the Harris campaign and then kind of flipped tail and exposed them. I don't know that she's necessarily gone Republican at all. I get a feeling like these people get so shocked when they come out of the Democrat plantation and the barrels get turned towards them. They're like, oh my gosh. And they get like this come to Jesus conservatism. But she says something that's pretty interesting about how the Biden White House was giving talking points to the Democrats and demanding that they use those talking points, including things like Joe Biden's at the top of his game. Oh, share the screen.
Send you another. Let me send you another one. This is a very high-ranking, the associate counsel of Kamala Harris, and they would just send it out. So just give you a taste like every single day. This is not an anomaly. Every single day, to the point where I created a filter and it went into the trash. And that is, you know what I mean? Like I'm not interested in being anyone's mouthpiece.
Yeah.
That's not who I am. Stephen, you know that much about me now. I'm not going to be here and regurgitate somebody else's script. Everything I'm saying is me.
Yeah.
And so this has I've always been kind of a rebel. So I just sent you another one. This is the deputy communications director. And so they would give us pre-made tweets. If you look at the bottom of the email, it would say stuff like, the VP gets it. The VP just connected the dots on Joy Reid. I don't know if you can see that, but so at the bottom, these are ready-made tweets that we could just, plunk in and tweet out.
So the White House was trying to run the Biden the Harris campaign and giving out these talking points. Now, this has been kind of like a running thing for a long time, is people look at the Democrat Party, they're like, man, these guys must get like a 4 a.m. talking points memo. They're all on the same script. And some people have argued that there's not a talking points memo. Some people have argued that there has. To me, that definitively proves there is a talking point memo. Now, the Democrats want to control everything, right? They want everything to be in lockstep. They want to project. Now, on the other hand, Donald Trump and his campaign, this is Will Scharf that was caught on a hot mic, and he was talking, he quoted a movie title called Our Brand is Chaos about the Trump administration. And he said, our brand is chaos. This is just kind of a funny little insight, as opposed to the Democrats who try to micromanage and control everything and shove it down your throat. The Republicans, the MAGA party, they just kind of adapt to everything as they go. They can live in that state of chaos.
How we doing? Lovely. Wonderful. Our brand is crisis.
Our brand is crisis.
That was a Sandra Bullock movie. A bit too true to life at times. Sir, how are you?
So Will Scharf is from Missouri. He ran for attorney general down there. So I got to watch all him and Andrew Bailey's commercials back and forth. They ran against each other. Now, Andrew Bailey's in the administration as well as the deputy director of the FBI 2. I don't know if it's co-director of deputy director of the FBI or they just got 2 of those positions. I'm not exactly how that works. Shantini, I'm saying hello. I saw your message much earlier, but didn't say hello. Hello. So that's pretty interesting. We have okay. Yeah. So, our brand is chaos. I don't know. It's pretty interesting. Tim Burkhart and Anna Paulina Luna, and got Chip Roy back here. I can't remember exactly who he is. You can't see my screen yet. They had a press conference yesterday talking about insider trading, because they're really trying to push getting rid of insider trading out of Congress, which I think would be a great move. I mean, who's against that? And he really threw a lot of his colleagues under the bus. I mean, he's basically telling you this is happening at scale.
It's kind of funny when you deal with this stuff. And I talked to the ethics people the other day. Everybody knows I make these crazy skateboards, and people asking, hey, sell me a skateboard. So I said, well, let me go check it out with ethics. I literally got to get attorneys involved to sell a dadgum skateboard. But if I want to do insider stock trading, just get elected to Congress, really. I mean, let's just be honest. Look, everybody ought to do like I do. Get their $12,000 portfolio in a mutual fund. Let my buddy Tommy Seiler handle it. He does pretty well. Although my daughter's going to school now, so I'll be cashing that out very soon. But look, we're public servants. We're stewards of the community. Nobody's above the law. You hear that? It's kind of become cliche up here. But for years, members of Congress, we know they've gotten rich using hardworking American taxpayers' money. Members sit on committees. We attend private meetings where we gain privileged information about companies. Congress appropriates money to economic sectors that may overlap with members' own portfolios. I call it the war pimps a lot. I worry about us voting on wars that we're going to send our kids off to that we couldn't even find on a dadgum globe, and members haven't owned stock in those things. The American taxpayer always gets the short end of the stick, and Congress seems to profit at their expense. This body has been enriching itself on the taxpayer's dime, and dadgummit, it's got to stop. The president's already said he would sign a bill banning stock trading for members of Congress if passed. I think the real test is going to be whether Congress has the guts to stand up and do what's right. And I'm proud of all these people up here. I don't agree with them, some of these people, on anything. If Cortez told me the sun was coming up tomorrow, I'd go out and check it out.
That's AOC. If AOC told me the sun was rising tomorrow, I'd be like, trust but verify, trust but verify. But they can agree on getting rid of stock insider trading. Now, I think Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez has done some semblance of that. I mean, her net worth has increased dramatically in a couple of years. But either way, they've got to get rid of the insider stock trading. They should all have to have their assets held in blind trust. I would be in favor, honestly, in doubling their salaries and giving an absolute ban on stock trading at all. I think it should be blind trust, no control whatsoever. Ponyboy, he said, yesterday's voting rights info you gave gives meaning to the term Democratic plantation. Yeah, a 10-year moratorium or a 10-year sunset on the voting rights or the voting rights bill. It's baffling. I'll never forget sitting in Philadelphia getting a lecture from an old black man that was in his 70s, longtime Democrat, but he hated the freaking Democrats because they never did nothing, but he hated the Republicans worse. Right. And he talked about that. He's like, how do they really value us when we have to go and beg every 10 years to get our voting rights renewed? And I was like, that is a good question. That is not a good design for a bill that's like supposed to be projecting out these immutable rights of things like voting. Anti-socialist leagues, they all do it, even MTG. You can get fired in the private sector for doing the same stunt. It should be the same in Congress. Capitaltrades.com gives you the list on both sides. I do believe both sides do it. Even some of our favorite people are doing it. It's like, it is the nature of how they work. Now, having that information in the right person's hands could create some type of leverage, right? Now, I don't know how it would be used, but the fact that they're making it an issue where they're bringing up this bill, holding press conferences, talking about it, and it's the Republicans talking about it too. It's not just the typical tax the rich Democrats. This is the Republicans talking about it. It could be significant. And you have to remember, even on the Democrat side, half that party is socialist communist. So they don't believe in this making stock trades for profit mentality. So they're going to eat their own. If they see their own, they did not like Dianne Feinstein. They don't like what Nancy Pelosi's doing. They don't like the insider trading. This is a movement that a lot of them got their initiation into it in the Occupy Wall Street movement with the corruption of the banks and the insurance companies. So it's not their cup of tea. So the Democrat Party, easily the base could get behind a bill banning insider trading. So it's just a matter of, can you get the appropriate coalition of Republicans that are willing to ban it, even if it's in their own disinterest? Like, can you get Marjorie Taylor Greene to ban insider trading and just be happy with what she's done so far? Allegations only. Versus, and same thing with AOC. Or are they just going to campaign on it, talk about it, and then let nothing happen? We'll see. I get the impression with Burkhart, he's just utterly sincere. George Santos had nothing but praises about him, saying that he's just down to earth, and it's interesting. He says he sells these skateboards and has to get attorneys involved to see if he can even do it. But yet you can do insider trading all day. I don't know if you remember, but a while back, Donald Trump posted a video of Hillary Clinton talking about how JFK Jr. was running for the Senate and then showed up dead one day, and then Hillary Clinton ended up winning. And then it talked about the list of dead bodies around Hillary Clinton, the Clinton body count. And we played it on the show. We're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he did this. Well, the PBD broadcast, Patrick Bet-David, he has some analysis on this. And I actually kind of agree with it, that Trump is kind of projecting out and staying on the offense. If you look at the relationship with Hillary Clinton, James Comey, Adam Schiff, remember, Adam Schiff thought he was going to be the CIA director in a Hillary administration. When you look at the connection of all of those, when Trump posted that, it's almost like he's broadcasting like, hey, I know your dirty tricks. And if you do anything like some of the dirty tricks, I'll be on top of it. And I will expose you worse than anything you could possibly imagine. And this is how Patrick Bet-David describes this video and his analysis, which I basically regurgitated.
This video was posted intentionally. Let me explain to you why.
Remember John F. Kennedy Jr.? He was declared the front runner for the New York Senate seat back in 1999. Days later, his plane crashed into the Atlantic Ocean, and his rival, Hillary Clinton, was elected senator.
This is why I love what the president does. He gets ahead of the enemy, knowing what manipulation and games are happening behind closed doors. This is my opinion. Last 2 days have been horrible days for Comey. Comey, in his eyes, he hurt Hillary Clinton in 2016 with the election president week before, and he's trying to make it up, okay? All right, so Hillary is tied to Comey. President Trump may have found out something that's going on behind closed doors that nobody else knows about. He's getting ahead of it, and he's just putting the pressure to say, hey, if you even think about doing any of your divisive stuff, Hillary, I'm going to expose you in ways you've never been exposed before. If you even come close to it, I think that's what's going on. And if that's the case, I like getting ahead of it, and I like playing offense.
It's pretty interesting. I don't know. But it makes sense. Otherwise, Trump's just trolling for trolling's sake. But if he's sending a signal like, hey, don't play your normal stupid games, then it might be a good thing. Okay, as we continue through some of this random news events yesterday, this last week has been mainly Charlie Kirk, Antifa being declared a terrorist organization. There's been a lot of stuff, but at the same time, there's also been other things that happen that lose the news cycle. So let's clip through a couple of these things. We have another looming government shutdown coming up, and Mike Johnson talks about this. Chuck Schumer has made his demands. He's decided what the Democrats are going to require in order to keep the government open.
Need a few more weeks to finish this good work. So what we did in a responsible manner as Republicans in charge is we offered a totally clean short-term CR to get that job done. Chuck Schumer saw that. He returned a counteroffer that is filled with partisan wish list and poison pills and demands. It includes, for example, Brett, what Chuck Schumer is arguing for. He wants to reinstate free health care for illegal aliens. He wants to add $500 million to prop up liberal media outlets. And he wants to add a massive $1.4 trillion spending hike to what should be a simple 7-week stopgap funding measure. We can't do that. We're not going to do it.
Yeah, I'm just
need a few more weeks.
Question for the chats then. If we don't want to add $1 trillion to a 7-week funding bill and we don't want to fund healthcare for illegal aliens, is it worth shutting the government down? So question for the chat. Do you think it's worth shutting the government down? And we'll get an answer or two, and then I'll share my thoughts on that. Okay, the other thing too was Donald Trump was in the UK, and on his way back on Air Force One, he starts asking questions. And one of the questions he got asked was why he didn't have dinner with the mayor of London, who is a Muslim. Now, the zeitgeist and the media is trying to turn this into some type of, look, Trump's a xenophobe, he's a racist. Now, keep in mind, he goes all over the Middle East. He has no problem at all talking with Muslims and breaking bread with them at all. In fact, his son-in-law is a Muslim that married Tiffany. Okay? He's got a son-in-law that's Jewish and a son-in-law that's Muslim. He has no problem with Muslims, but he has a problem with the mayor of London. It's an ideological problem and not a religious problem. So despite what they're saying, that's their process. But this is what he said about it. It's always important to hear it from the horse's mouth, because when you hear the spin, what do they say? The lie gets all the way around the world before the truth puts on its pants.
What do you think about the fact that you attend an event in England, a state visit, it's spectacular, right, and yet the mayor of London can't be there?
I didn't want him there. I asked that he not be there. I don't want them. I think the mayor of London, Khan, is among the worst mayors in the world. And we have some bad ones. If you look at Chicago, but I think he's the equivalent of the mayor of Chicago. I think he's done a terrible job. Crime in London is through the roof. The mayor of London, Mayor Khan, has done a terrible job. And on immigration, he's a disaster. No, I asked that he not be there. He wanted to be there, as I understand. I didn't want him. I've not liked him for a long time. I just think, I have a certain pride in London and UK. My mother was born in Scotland, as you know. And when I see Mayor Khan do a bad job, the stabbings and the dirt and the filth, it's not the same. I didn't want him there.
So the dirt, the filth, the stabbings, it's the conditions of the city. You're a crappy mayor. I don't want to have you there. I don't want to give you credit. That's actually pretty smart. When the mayor gets iced out, his political capital is diminished. Okay. When the mayor gets iced out, when a politician gets iced out from a big state visit like that, their capital is diminished. How can those guys, claim to have all this power and influence when they can't even be invited to a state dinner like that and you're the mayor of London? It's actually a really big deal. The thing I love about Donald Trump is he picks his enemies pretty well. I mean, yeah, he's got the Rosie O'Donnells out there that you're like, what's the utility of that other than just laughing, right? But for the most part, he's pretty good about picking his enemies. I kind of like it. Okay, so we've got some response here in the chat. Shut it down, says Pray the Rosary Daily. Shut down the government. KRM. Oh, geez. It's all consonants. Agree. Shut it down. May be able to see who is expendable permanently. Yes, yes, yes. Carlito and Tiffany on YouTube. Why shut it down? Why shut it down? There is no real money, but I could go either way. Shut it down. Peasants, I asked, how long should it be shut down? So I am of the same opinion. Shut it down. When you're in DC and all the jobs are like federal, then when a shutdown, nobody gets to go to work, nobody's getting paid. But you know how much people out in the heartland of America care about that? Not at all. Not one freaking bit. First of all, federal workers always get their back pay. So they never actually get laid off. They just get a paid vacation, paid when they get back. Now, if a shutdown really does happen, here's the game plan that always happens. Democrats will drag out the Librarian of Congress, some black lady that's overweight, that's had that job for 22 years, that's a minimum wage job. They'll bring her out. They'll have her cry, say she can't make her credit card payments and her medical bills, and she's living paycheck to paycheck, even though she's had a job long enough that you'd think she'd have a retirement plan by this point. They do this every freaking time. Right? They bring out non-essential workers. You hear about their sob story and how they have no savings and how we need to pass these absolutely ridiculous budgets so that grandmama can go back to work and buy her Lunchables for her grandkids, right? Every stinking time. I am absolutely of the opinion, shut it down and leave it shut down. If you're not an essential worker, then you're not essential at all. Go apply somewhere else. Go find some profit motive where you can help the public interest. Stop taking our money. Stop making some money. Anyways, yeah, I think they should shut it down. I am truly, truly of the opinion that you could go on to basically a government shutdown, and you're not going to lose much. You're not going to lose much. Who are you going to lose? People that are processing government grants to a bunch of bull places? Yeah, you're not losing much. Eventually you'll let the park rangers come back and you'll figure out the budget. But yeah, if we could go like an extended 6-month shutdown, I mean, we might be able to really put some austerity measures in place. So this is Donald Trump also being asked about, this was being asked about Charlie Kirk's killing. And then he was also asked about Ilhan Omar, who doubled down yesterday after she avoided censure. She doubled down yesterday and was like, who's this Charlie Kirk guy? And got a standing ovation in her little echo chamber she was talking in. So this is Donald Trump going pretty extreme on Ilhan Omar in her home country, Somalia.
I think she should be impeached. I think she's terrible. Is she originally from Somalia? Yes, sir. So how are they doing this? How's their government? Do they have a president? Do they have a council? Do they have anything? Do they have police? I love these people that come from a place with nothing, no anything, and then they tell us how to run our country. No, I think if she got censured, that's great. If she got impeached, that's even better. They impeached me twice for nothing, and they impeached me knowing the Republicans are on my side, so they knew it was just. But they impeached me twice. She should be impeached, and. It should happen fast. I think she should be impeached.
She should be impeached, and it should happen fast. She won't be. She just won't be. Couldn't even get her censured because Representative Corey Mills had an affair and, blackmailed an ex-girlfriend. So, we can't censure the Somalian who married her brother and committed immigration fraud and, has staff members going to prison for embezzlement schemes. Can't do hardly anything about it. It's so bad. I think it's funny. How does Somalia doing? Did they have a president, a council? Yeah, it's being run by warlords and pirates right now. Now, you might be thinking, It's really early in the morning. This stuff is hard to deal with. Well, you should get yourself some 1775 coffee. Now's your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped, only 1,000 units. You're getting the bold, dark roast that hits hard, and the smooth medium roast, and the Vitality mushroom coffee for clean energy and laser focus, no crash. You know, adding mushroom into coffee is really good. The whole mycelium thing, it like gets your brain going, right? All single origin, small batch, toxin free, and mold free. Plus, you're also getting a golden spoon, a gold spoon clip, because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. A frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's opinions. And a black 1775 tumbler, $170 worth of coffee and gear, yours for $99. This is for the ones who've been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler alert, it is. Go to 1775coffee/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands something just like Rumble does. I've actually been watching these videos as I'm posting them because I need to go refill my coffee. I've run out this morning, and I'm going to have to get some 1775 coffee as soon as the show's over because it's good stuff. So enjoy some 1775. Get yourself your golden spoon clip and your tumbler and enjoy. Yeah, you got to have coffee because what's going on in the Senate now is they are finally getting down to business on getting Trump's nominees appointed and confirmed. They did 48 yesterday in a roll call vote.
On this vote, the yeas are 51, the nays are 47, and the nominations on block are confirmed.
Boom! Look at the smile
on this vote. The yeas are 51 and the nays are 47, and the nominations on block are confirmed. Thank you.
So this is being touted as the Senate. Senator John Thune finally went nuclear. They're doing on block confirmations. He got 48 confirmed yesterday, all at once. 51 to 47. Leader Thune has invoked the nuclear option. Keep pushing. They all must be confirmed. The amount of damage that Donald Trump has done to the federal government, and I mean damage. Whole departments being ripped out, doors being locked and closed, staffs being fired, grants being lawsuits to pull back money from the EPA, Department of Education completely changing its mission and purpose, CDC directors getting fired and scientists getting fired, people who thought they were untouchable. He has done so much, and it will not be easily put back in place, okay, because of the Loper Bright case in the Supreme Court last year that said that the executive branch can't have delegated authorities for rulemaking anymore. That means there's not the ability for the next president to just grow the federal government without legislative approval. So the fact that we have a beat up legislature right now that is only ever concerned about funding things, they're never concerned about writing rules or laws, you're going to see a period here where Donald Trump is just going to get away with slashing. And to think that he has done this with a vast majority of his cabinet officials, his political nominees, not having put in place, the fact that they're finally getting to them is such a big deal. Like, if you thought the last 7 or 8 months was was moving fast, the next 7 or 8 or 9 months could be just absolutely breakneck lightning speed. And you've got so many factors like Antifa being declared a terror organization. You've got factors like the grand conspiracy case that is going on. You've got the fact that people who were directly affected by the lawfare, like Peter Navarro, who I'm going to play here in a second, are now in the White House and they're talking about prison reform. These guys got no more bleeps to give, right? They've paid the price. They've suffered the consequences of lawfare. And now they're turned around and they just want to hold the measuring stick back on these people. So here is Peter Navarro talking about how every single person involved in his and Steve Bannon's prosecution were Democrats. And I could say the same thing. Every single person that I interacted with, that I was involved with, was a Democrat. Even my judge, this touted Reagan Republican that was appointed 37 years ago, was actually a huge, person in the Carter administration, but he broke the air traffic controllers strike in the 1980s, and Reagan rewarded him with an appointment to a district court position, but he really was a Democrat. So here's Peter Navarro talking about how top to bottom, this was a Democrat operation against the people.
Everybody I served with, Steve, including you, has been a target of the left. At a minimum, they've spent millions of dollars in legal fees, whether it's Mike Flynn or America's Mayor Rudy Giuliani. They take the bar cards of Jeff Clark, John Eastman. And on the other end, Steve, you and I went to prison, and everybody who put us there, every single person was a Democrat except Liz Cheney, and that's the exception that proves the rule. I mean, think about that. How can the Democrats seize power and use that to put us in prison and call us fascists? How dare they? Everybody I served with, Steve, including
the Democrats, seize power, a stolen election in 2020, usurp that authority, and then turn around and weaponize that authority against people like Peter Navarro, and I'll throw myself into that mix. That's a big deal. And this is a pattern. This is a pattern of government abuse. This is the Attorney General for the District of Columbia, and he's being grilled by Andy Biggs about targeting firearm dealers.
You were confident you were going to win the case when you didn't have jack squat, but you went after 3 FFLs because you had a political agenda. There were no sanctions. Did you have to pay attorney's fees or costs? Were any of those ordered? I didn't see them ordered in here. I assume they're not. They weren't ordered.
There were no sanctions. There were no costs. So, the important thing is we were working as hard as we can in this city to keep illegal guns out.
No, the important thing is.
And the
no, sir. No, listen to me for a second. Listen to me for a second. The important thing, Mr. Attorney General Schwab, the important thing was that you were using your office to abuse gun FFLs because you don't like them. And that's the deal. Because as the judge said, you basically didn't have a case whatsoever. But you decided to use your power and your authority and make the process the punishment. That's what you chose to do. That's what you chose to do, and there's no question before you.
That is not true, sir.
That's exactly what this says. And that's a shame, because that's an abuse of power right there.
So they had 2 gun dealers. FFL stands for Federal Firearm License, right? FFL? I think that's what it is. Anyways, they had 2 gun dealers in the District of Columbia that they targeted. No crime. No crime. Never had a crime. Just targeted them. Just dragged them through the court process. Just made allegations that all came out to be untrue. Just, expense, costs, simply because these guys are selling guns. And, this Attorney General doesn't like guns for who knows what freaking reason, it seems like. Except they're completely armed and loaded to the hilt, right? This is the weaponization. This is possible under any administration. And unless you have good people with, ethics and a North Star, you're going to run into this problem. And I'm more and more being convinced that this is just you what do they say? You lie in the bed you make, right? This is an example of you lie in the bed you make. If you're going to target Americans and go after good, honest businessmen that are just trying to do good for the public, right, in the public interest, and you attack them, eventually the shoe's going to be on the other foot. And you created all the weapons. You created all the mechanisms. You got rid of all the checks and balances to keep corrupt prosecutors from acting. And now you've got no defenses, right? The only defense you have is the actual attorney, like in the Eastern District of Virginia, that says, I don't want to indict Letitia James. I'm scared. Okay, you're fired. Next, right? That's the world we're going to live in. So we're moving past counterculture and we're moving into accountability culture. You will be measured with the measuring stick which you measured with. This is Jim Jordan going over James Comey and Adam Schiff and leaking and all of the scandal. He summarizes the Russiagate exposure here in 5 minutes and 47 seconds or so. And this is incredible. You have a sitting member of the Senate who, on the congressional record, like when Jim Jordan's going through here, is just exposing crime after crime after crime. Crimes that could even be labeled sedition and treason potentially, okay? And that the current FBI director is the guy who caught him doing it when he was a staffer for Devin Nunes. And that now you've got the spat between them, which we played yesterday. So let's listen to Jim Jordan basically step through, detail by detail, the inception of this Russiagate thing and Schiff's involvement. Stunning.
It's 5 weeks ago, because of the work of Director Patel, we learned that the former chair of the House Intelligence Committee and current United States Senator leaked classified information. We learned this because a whistleblower came forward. Whistleblower with 23 years experience in the intelligence community, a Democrat staffer on the committee, said this: they were pressured to leak classified information, which sort of raises the obvious question. Why would the head of the Intelligence Committee, the chair of that committee, who's supposed to be guarding our secrets, why would he be encouraging the leaking of classified information? Whistleblower told us that answer as well. The leaked information was supposed to be used, the leaked information, false information, was going to be used to indict President Trump. Now, the former chairman wasn't the only person leaking information. Jim Comey was also sharing things he wasn't supposed to share. Again, don't take my word for it. The Inspector General told us this. In his report, he said, quote, James Comey violated FBI policy by disclosing classified information. And what was Comey's motive? Same as the senator from California: to sabotage and undermine President Trump's first term. And we know that Mr. Comey's not been shy about what his objective was. In fact, 4 months ago, he told us. Remember this? 8647. Jim Comey told us just 4 months ago. Now, how'd they do it? How did the former chair of the Intel community, the former FBI director, and others in our government attempt to undermine President Trump's first term? 7 weeks ago, because of the good work of the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, we learned from another whistleblower, a second whistleblower, that in the closing days of the Obama administration, the intelligence community assessment was changed. On December 5th, 2016, they had one assessment. That assessment said Russia did not impact the election vote count. There was a meeting at the White House on December 9th, 2016, where it was decided, no, we're not going to have that. We're going to come up with a new one. And the new one said Russia was trying to influence election and did influence election, which just wasn't accurate. And that new one is published on January 6, 2017. Let's just show you a few things that took place. I want to show you first this email from Admiral Rogers, the head of the NSA. You can see it was December 22nd. Says to Jim, John, and Jim Clapper, John Brennan, Jim Comey. And he says, I asked my team if they've had sufficient access to the underlying intelligence, sufficient time to review that intelligence. On both points, my team raised concern. Further states, my folks aren't fully comfortable. A few hours later, there's an email back to Admiral Rogers. This one is from Jim Clapper, and it says this: it is essential that we be on the same page and all of us are supportive of the report in the highest tradition of, that's our story and we're sticking to it. We may have to compromise on our normal modalities. This is one project that has to be a team sport. That's our story, and we're sticking to it. Compromise on normal modalities, that's a fancy way of saying, that's the government speak for we're going to have to change the rules. In fact, we're not going to follow our own rules. And that's exactly what they did to get the objective they wanted, to undermine President Trump. Now, how did it specifically take place? The whistleblower said that the government officials ignored concerns about discredited information. And what was that discredited information? What was the discredited information that they didn't ignore the concerns about? What did they use, that discredited information? Of course, it was the dossier, the now famous Steele dossier that was paid for by the Clinton campaign when they hired the law firm Perkins Coie, who hired Fusion GPS, who hired the foreigner Christopher Steele, who wrote all this garbage and lies down. That is what was used to change the intelligence community report. And what happens next? What do Jim, John, and Jim do next? They go to Trump Tower on January 6, 2017, to brief then President-elect Trump about the dossier. Again, the Clinton-financed, foreign-authored dossier that the whistleblower knows is garbage and that they know is garbage. And then there's one final step. One final step. Jim Comey leaves that meeting with the president and immediately leaks to the press that they briefed the president on the discredited information. They briefed the president on the dossier and thereby given it some credibility and creating the basis and the predicate for all they did to the president. They leaked false information. They leaked classified information. They used and leaked discredited information, and they didn't follow their own rules, all to sabotage President Trump's first term. And but for this guy, Kash Patel, but for this guy, we would never have known this information. The good people of this great country would not have known what took place 8 years ago when they were trying to undermine the guy elected by we the people. And I want to thank Attorney General Bondi. She set up a special strike force, a special team to look into this and see if there's any criminal liability that exists in what took place.
Is there any criminal liability? Of course there's criminal liability. You just described treason. I love it so much. Oh, I love it so much. Shantini chimed in as far as our question on shutting down the government. She says, shut it down. I asked, how long should it be shut down? Maybe we should just go permanent. Permanent shutdown? Why not? So here's Adam Schiff defending himself. Again, I love listening to this stuff. I love seeing these people kind of in like a squirmy position. And this is the rebuttal. You just heard Jim Jordan. And again, congressmen lie. You have to assume that even our players could be lying. I mean, why couldn't you assume that? They lied about the Iraq war for a decade. Why wouldn't they still be lying, right? You always have to, every politician, you have to take with a grain of sand, verify but check. Even guys like Burkhart, right? So this is Adam Schiff running over to MSNBC to defend himself, his little self.
Not only is Patel incompetent, but he is firing all the competent people. A lot of the questioning today, including my own, was focused.
What's that phrase? You know, like you're in good company or you got good enemies. So not only is he firing people, not good, but he's firing all the best people. Well, if Adam Schiff says they're the best people and you just did what Jim Jordan described, I'm pretty sure he's firing the right people.
Competent people. A lot of the questioning today, including my own, was focused on his firing senior leaders at the FBI for no other reason than the fact they were assigned cases investigating Donald Trump. Now, he, I think, lied about that clearly today. He's being sued by 3 senior FBI agents who will take him to court and depose him and I think reveal those lies. But he's firing the experienced people. And more than that, he's taking agents off of these important investigations like sex trafficking, like counterterrorism, like malicious foreign interference. And what is he doing with them? He's putting them on immigration raids. So it's the diversion of resources, the incompetence at the very top, and the getting rid of people who are the true professionals. And I have to imagine morale at the Bureau is just at a all-time low, because how can you respect someone like Patel? My concluding comments to him after our back and forth is, you can take an internet troll and make him FBI director, but he's still not going to be anything more than an internet troll. And that just makes us a lot less safe.
You know, Schiff has almost no tells for lying. He just is he's just Adam Schiff. I don't know how else. I mean, the guy's just lying. I love how he's taking him off these cases like sex crimes and domestic terrorism and election interference or whatever. Yes, if you're on those sex crimes, all right, whatever. You know, yeah, you shouldn't be taking off those cases. But that's a cover for basically saying he's firing the people we put in place for Operation Arctic Frost. That's what he's saying. All the people we had investigating the Republicans at large, oh my gosh, he's firing them because they were committing a form of treason. He has no tells. You'd think he'd be freaking out. Instead, he's just got his thing down. This guy, obviously, he's got a pardon in his back pocket. He just acts protected. There's nothing else. Whatever. Powerful state of California, I guess. All right, guys, that's it for me today. I don't have anything else on my queue here to play for you guys. And so we're not going into the private. How fun is that? It's just you and me, or you and us, or, you know, it's just us. It's just us today, the peasants. We'll be back with Ron on Monday. I hope you guys all have a wonderful weekend. Please take a chance to go visit 1776live.us. And of course, as always, go visit leftbehindandwithout.org. I'm telling you, the greatest blessing that came out of my incarceration was that foundation. The amount of good it's doing on a one-on-one level in the lives of children is phenomenal. So please take a look at that and consider a small monthly donation to help some kids. Even a small donation like 10 or 20 bucks with the partnership they have with the YMCA, that's enough to pay for memberships and get them into summer camps and stuff like that. We just have to pay something sometimes, and it's just a couple bucks. So even small donations go a long ways. All right. And if you want to make a big donation, even better. All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And we'll talk to you guys again tomorrow. Bye. No outro. So we'll see you.